If you're watching this, it means that you like knowledge and fun facts, which also means that you're likely a smart person and you don't get tricked easily. Good for you! But sometimes people come up with lies that are so convincing that the masses believe them. Well, that is until they get exposed. Here are the 10 greatest hoaxes of all time, part 2. Number 10 is the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. Next time you find yourself walking through the Olympic National Forest in Washington State, United States, keep your eyes on the tree branches, because if you're lucky, you'll spot one of those totally fictitious creatures. One of the earliest hoaxes in internet history, the octopus paxarbolus, better known as the Pacific Northwest tree octopus, began fooling people in 1998. That's when creator Lyle Zapato launched his website, which revealed the endangered creatures needing our help. Zapato claimed that the animals could survive both on land, specifically in coniferous trees, and in the sea, and added that their existence is threatened by things like the fashion industry, house cats, and of course, Bigfoot. But despite these ridiculous claims, many people believe that the octopus existed, offering to help where they could. Before you judge people in 1998, keep in mind this was also a time when computers made websites that looked like they came out of a shoebox with keys on it, so yeah, it wouldn't have been hard to trick them. Number 9 is Naked Came the Stranger. In 1969, a Long Island housewife named Penelope Ash released Naked Came a Stranger, a sexy novel that chronicled her trysts with numerous men. It quickly became a bestseller, and Ash began appearing on talk shows to promote it. The trouble is, she never actually existed. The novel was actually the brainchild of Newsday columnist Mike McGrady, who'd set out to prove that any book could become popular with enough sex thrown in it, and brought together a group of writers, mostly men, to quickly write multiple chapters. His sister-in-law, Billy Young, pretended to be the author in interviews. Once the book sold 20,000 copies, McGrady came clean in an interview. But here's the real kicker. By revealing the hoax, he only created more of a monster, and the book wound up selling 100,000 copies. Oh, this book is a lie? I'm so mad at this guy. I better go buy 5 more copies for everybody I know. Number 8 is the Cardiff Giant. Considered one of the most famous hoaxes in the history of the United States, the Cardiff Giant was discovered on October 16, 1869 by a group of workers who were digging in a well in Cardiff, New York. It wasn't long before people flocked to see the 3-meter-tall, petrified body of what appeared to be a human giant. The landowner, William Newell, set up a tent and charged 25 cents per person, which was actually a lot of money at the time, to see this wonder, increasing it to 50 cents as more and more people started arriving at his farm. But sadly, the giant was a complete fake, created by George Hull, an atheist who placed it there as revenge after arguing with a minister who believed that giants used to walk the earth. The statue was carved out of a block of gypsum and had been treated with acids to appear weathered and ancient. Wait a minute, this guy took the time to carve out a 3-meter tall statue, treat it so that it looks ancient, and bury it all just for revenge? Some people have way too much time on their hands. Number 7 is Earliest Life. On October 23, 2000, famed archaeologist Shinichi Divine Hands Fujimura announced that he and his team had uncovered several stone artifacts in Japan that dated back over 570,000 years. The discovery at that time was considered to be the oldest sign of human life that had ever been unearthed. But on November 5, 2000, Mr. Divine Hands' discoveries were outed as being forgeries in a Japanese newspaper article, in which pictures were published of the man burying some stones at one of the discovery sites. Now, he did confess to faking the whole thing, but then he also claimed that he'd been possessed and tempted by Satan. His lies created a ton of work for other researchers and archaeologists who suddenly realized what they thought to be true about ancient humans was suddenly full of falsehoods. We did it! We discovered something ancient! My whole life's work has been worth it! It was a lie? Okay, my life is a lie. Number 6 is Bathtub Day. On December 28, 1942, people opened their New York Evening Mail newspaper to find an 1,800-word story from writer H.L. Mencken, who'd clearly had enough of people not celebrating an anniversary that had, in his mind, gone unrecognized for far too long. According to the essay, December 20th marked the anniversary of the day that bathtubs first arrived in the United States. The story told of how the bathtub only really took off after one was installed in the White House, and the rest was history, even adding that he was appalled that no plumbers saluted the holiday. However, as you can likely guess, the entire thing was a work of fiction. Mencken believed that readers would understand it was fake, but his story of the bathtub is still referenced in history papers, and even in a 2008 Kia commercial as fact. That's like how people believe that John Crapper invented the toilet. Not true, although that would have been a happy coincidence. Number 5 is Abyssinians on the Dreadnot. Practical jokes can be embarrassing, albeit downright hilarious, but when they reveal a gaping hole in the security of a world powers naval flagship, they can humiliate an entire country. That was the case in 1910 when a group of writers, artists, and thinkers called the Bloomsbury Group managed to not only get on board the Royal Navy's most powerful battleship, the HMS Dreadnot, but got a guided tour from the ship's crew. Led by poet William Horace de Vere Cole, the group sent a telegram explaining the ship would receive the Emperor of Abyssinia and his entourage. The Navy literally rolled out the red carpet for them, and they arrived in full makeup and costumes. The hoax wasn't realized until a reporter wrote an article on it, embarrassing all of the officers involved. Okay, this one actually could have been dangerous, unlike those really funny hoaxes where people pretend to be experts in a field and show up live on TV on CNN and say something ridiculous like "dum dum today" or "poop de whoop scoop doop." Those are on YouTube right now, look it up. Number 4 are the Lying Stones. When his students presented him with several limestone fossils of carvings that they'd found outside of a Bavarian town in 1725, Professor Johann Beringer, the dean of the Faculty of Medicine at Würzburg University, was astonished. He immediately noticed that, although they were clearly ancient in origin, they also bore words in Hebrew, including God. This led the man to believe that they were of divine origin, essentially a message from God to ancient humankind. He was very excited, but unfortunately for the dean, they were fake, created by 2 of his colleagues. He discovered this when a new piece of limestone arrived, this one bearing his own name. Adding to the humiliation was the fact that shortly before he found out about the hoax, he'd written an entire book on the amazing find and what it meant. Oopsies! Number 3 is the origin of April Fools. On April 1st, 1983, Boston University professor and pop culture historian Joseph Boskin decided to deliver a fictional account of how April Fool's Day came to be a thing. He'd been talking to a reporter named Fred Bayless, who was incessantly asking the teacher to clarify where the holiday came from, despite Boskin's multiple explanations that nobody really knows. Boskin eventually said that jesters in ancient Rome petitioned Constantine to designate one day as a national day of silliness, and the rest is history. Of course, though it contained ridiculous details, Bayless and many others copied the story, believing it was accurate. Multiple news agencies contacted Boskin, who actually kept the joke going until he eventually outed himself in a lecture about how gullible the media is just a few weeks later. Wait a minute, you mean some of the media are like lemmings that can be manipulated? Who would have guessed? Ooh. Number 2 is the Tassa De Tribe. On July 16, 1971, a news report on NBC Nightly News announced that the Tassidae, a new peaceful cave-dwelling tribe, had been discovered in a remote Philippines jungle, one which was still technologically and socially in the Stone Age. For years, the world looked for this unevolved community with wonder and awe, trying to explain how such a civilization could have possibly gone unheard of. That is, until Philippine politician Manuel Elizalde, the self-imposed protector of the Tassidae's privacy and way of life, was ousted from office, and a couple of reporters managed to sneak into the jungles he declared off limits. It was there that they actually did find a Tassidae tribe, only instead of caves, they found them living in houses with modern amenities. Turns out Elizalde made the whole thing up. And number 1 is the Piltdown Man. In 1912, an amateur archaeologist brought a fever to the scientific community when he revealed his recent discovery, one that provided the missing link between man and ape in the evolutionary process, yet it was completely fake. That archaeologist was Charles Dawson, and his discovery was a fossil of a human skull, but with a very large jawbone and teeth. When the skull was reassembled, it fooled nearly every expert who examined it, and the new species that had been found was dubbed the Anthropus dawsoni, which was Latin for Dawson's Dawn Man. Evolution suddenly became a very hot topic, and it spawned a number of research projects in the subject. But despite the fact that Dawson completely fabricated the evidence, it took over 41 years for scientists to realize that they had been duped. Well, nothing like a hoax going on for 41 years to rile up some feathers. So, the 10 biggest hoaxes of all time, part 2. Yes, there was a part 1, you can tap the link on the screen right now. It is just a whole nother thing because people are really good at lying, and some crazy stories in that one, so check it out. I'll see you next time.